The morning sun shined softly across the city as Ms. Daniels held her daughter Amina's hand tightly while walking toward the tall glass building where she worked. For Amina, the building looked like a giant mirror touching the sky, and she stared at it with wide, curious eyes. Today was family visit day, when employees were allowed to bring their children to see where they worked. Most parents brought kids proudly, showing off their desks and accomplishments. But Ms. Daniels was nervous. She wasn't a manager or a supervisor. She was a janitor. Her job was hidden behind the scenes, cleaning floors, wiping tables, and picking up after people who barely noticed her. Amina looked up at her mother with a gentle smile. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked softly. Ms. Daniels forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. I just hope today goes smoothly." Inside the building, children ran around excitedly, touching everything with wonder. Employees laughed, showing their children the fancy meeting rooms, computer desks, coffee machines, and conference halls. Amina stayed close to her mother, quietly observing. She wasn't loud or wild. She carried a small notebook where she liked to write words she learned in different languages. Amina was shy, but she had a mind that absorbed knowledge like a sponge. Ms. Daniels guided her through the building, explaining, "This is where Mommy works. This is the cafeteria. And over there is my cleaning cart." Amina touched her mother's arm. "Your job is important, Mom. You help everyone." Ms. Daniels felt her throat tighten at her daughter's sweet words, but she simply nodded and smiled. Meanwhile, the CEO of the company, Mr. Dalton, strutted across the main hallway like he owned the world. He was tall, sharply dressed, and full of himself. He believed no one worked harder than him, even though he rarely lifted a finger. He enjoyed attention. He enjoyed being admired. And he especially enjoyed reminding people of their place. When he saw families gathered, his chest puffed up with pride. "Welcome to our company," he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. "We are a team that values professionalism, intelligence, and success." Employees clapped politely, though many rolled their eyes silently. As Mr. Dalton walked further, he spotted Ms. Daniels wiping a spill near the coffee machine. He frowned slightly, not because she was doing anything wrong, but because he believed her work didn't belong in front of visitors. He preferred to pretend that janitors didn't exist. Then he noticed a young black girl standing beside her, the only child in the room wearing simple clothes instead of brand-name outfits. Amina watched quietly as her mother cleaned, not embarrassed but proud. Mr. Dalton narrowed his eyes. He didn't bother hiding his irritation. "That woman brings her child?" he muttered to himself. One of the managers beside him heard but said nothing. No one dared to correct Mr. Dalton. His power made people uncomfortable. A few minutes later, the company tour officially began. Families followed Mr. Dalton as he pointed out different departments: the marketing team, the sales office, the design studio. Amina walked with her mother at the back of the group, absorbing everything like she was reading a storybook. When they passed the International Clients Lounge, Amina stopped and looked at the flags on the walls. She whispered quietly, "Arabic, French, Chinese, Spanish, so many languages." Her mother smiled. "One day you will speak many of them." Amina already spoke too fluently, but Ms. Daniels didn't brag. She never wanted her daughter to feel pressured. The group reached the conference hall, where refreshments were served. Children grabbed cupcakes and fruit juice, laughing loudly. Amina picked a small cup of water and sat beside her mother. But the peace didn't last long. Mr. Dalton walked into the hall and scanned the room. His eyes landed on Ms. Daniels again. She was standing in a corner, trying to stay out of the way, holding her cleaning rag in case of spills. He approached with a sarcastic smile. Well, Miss Daniels," he said loudly, making sure nearby parents heard. "Didn't know cleaning staff were bringing their kids today." Ms. Daniels stiffened. "It's allowed, sir. Family visit day." Mr. Dalton shrugged. "I guess we couldn't expect you to stay home. You probably couldn't find childcare." Some parents looked uncomfortable. Others pretended not to hear. Amina looked at him quietly, her eyes big but calm. Mr. Dalton smirked at her. "And this must be your daughter. I hope she grows up aiming higher than mopping floors." Ms. Daniels held Amina close, embarrassment burning her cheeks. Amina didn't reply. She simply looked at him carefully, trying to understand why adults talked like this. The CEO chuckled to himself and walked away, proud of his little speech. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that the quiet little girl he just insulted carried a powerful gift inside her. A gift that would soon embarrass him in front of the entire company. For now, Amina simply held her mother's hand, unaware that her moment was coming. A moment that would change everything. The morning continued with laughter, chatter, and excited children running from department to department, exploring the colorful offices and modern equipment. But for Ms. Daniels and Amina, every step felt heavier. They stayed near the back of the tour group, hoping to avoid more attention. Amina didn't mind being quiet, but she hated seeing her mother uncomfortable. "Mom," Amina whispered, "you don't have to be scared. You do good work." Ms. Daniels smiled softly but didn't answer. She didn't want her daughter to see how deeply the CEO's words had hurt. The group reached the large glass elevator that led up to the executive floor. Parents and children stepped inside, excited to see the luxurious offices at the top. Amina held her mother's hand tightly as they rode up. When the elevator doors opened, everyone gasped. The executive floor looked like a different world. Marble floors, giant windows with a skyline view, walls decorated with expensive paintings, and conference tables made of polished wood. Everything smelled of money and importance. Mr. Dalton was waiting for them at the top. He smiled proudly, spreading his arms as if showing off a museum he owned. "Welcome to the heart of the company," he declared. "This is where real decisions happen." A few children clapped. Parents nodded respectfully. Mr. Dalton walked ahead, leading the group toward a wide conference room. But as he passed Ms. Daniels again, he paused, looked her up and down, and said loudly enough for others to hear, "I'm surprised you made it up here without getting lost. I thought the cleaning staff usually stayed downstairs." Ms. Daniels lowered her eyes, trying to hide the red forming in her cheeks. Amina looked at him steadily, her eyes calm but sharp. She didn't like the man's tone. She didn't like how he made her mother feel small. But still she stayed silent. The families gathered in the conference room, sitting around the long table. Mr. Dalton stood at the front, talking about profits, achievements, investments, and new clients. Amina watched him with curiosity. He spoke loudly, confidently, enjoying every moment of the spotlight. Near the end of his speech, he added dramatically, "We recently signed with new international partners who speak Arabic. A language most people here probably don't understand." He glanced in Amina's direction, not kindly. This time employees noticed. A few exchanged uncomfortable looks. Then one of the visiting investors entered. He was a tall man with a kind smile. He approached Mr. Dalton and whispered something in Arabic. Mr. Dalton froze. He nodded stiffly, pretending to understand, then turned back to the group with a forced laugh. "See? Arabic. Very complicated language." Amina's eyes widened. She understood every word the investor said. In fact, she understood Arabic better than English. The investor spoke again, this time louder. It was a greeting and a polite request to proceed with the presentation. Mr. Dalton panicked inside. He didn't understand the request, but he didn't want anyone to know that. So he did what insecure people do, he tried to shift embarrassment onto someone else. He turned sharply toward Amina and pointed at her. "You," he said loudly, pretending to joke but actually mocking. "Why don't you translate what he said? If you get it right, I'll give your mom my job." The room fell silent. Ms. Daniels gasped and held Amina's shoulder. "Sir, please, she's just a child." Mr. Dalton smirked. "Oh, come on, it's just fun. Let's see if the little girl is smarter than she looks." A few employees shook their heads. Others looked down, wishing the CEO would stop. But he didn't. "Go on," Mr. Dalton said tauntingly. "Translate. I'll wait." Amina looked at him calmly. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. She simply blinked once, processing the insult. Then she looked at the investor kindly, and in perfect Arabic she said, "He asked if you were ready to begin the presentation. He said good morning and that he is grateful to meet everyone." The investor's eyes widened in shock and delight. Everyone in the room gasped. Mr. Dalton's fake smile dropped instantly. Amina continued, still in perfect Arabic, adding a polite phrase her grandmother used to teach her. "And I say to you, sir, welcome. I hope your time here is good." The investor clasped his hands together and laughed joyfully. "You speak beautifully," he said. The room erupted in whispered disbelief. Ms. Daniels stared at her daughter, tears forming in her eyes, this time not from shame but from pride. Mr. Dalton stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to hide. He had tried to embarrass the wrong girl. Amina didn't just translate. She exposed him. In front of his workers, his investors, and his pride. And the consequences were just beginning. For a full 5 seconds the room stayed frozen. Not a breath, not a whisper, not even a blink disturbed the silence. Amina stood calmly, her hands folded in front of her, her voice still echoing in the minds of everyone present. She had spoken Arabic with the confidence of a trained linguist, not a young girl standing beside her janitor mother. The investor broke the silence first. He stepped toward Amina with a warm smile on his face. "Your Arabic is flawless," he said, switching languages easily. "Who taught you?" Amina replied softly, "My grandmother, sir. She lived with us for a while and taught me everything she knew." The investor nodded with deep admiration. "You speak better than many professionals I've met." The room burst into whispers. Employees turned to each other, still processing what they had witnessed. Some smiled proudly. Others shook their heads in disbelief. A few parents nudged their own children, telling them quietly, "See? Talent can come from anywhere." But Mr. Dalton felt the blow hit him like a collapsing wall. His face drained of color. His confident smile had evaporated. His hands trembled slightly as he realized the investors now knew the truth. He didn't understand Arabic at all, and he had tried to mock a child who did. He forced a shaky laugh. Well, that was quite unexpected." The investor turned to him sharply. "Unexpected?" he repeated. "Mr. Dalton, this girl's knowledge is impressive. We should have her help us today." Amina blushed and looked down. She wasn't trying to steal attention or impress anyone. She simply answered because she could. Ms. Daniels squeezed her daughter's hand gently. She felt a deep pride growing inside her, a pride she hadn't felt in years. But along with that pride came a tight knot of fear. She knew the CEO wasn't a man who accepted embarrassment gently. Mr. Dalton cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Yes, it's nice that she knows a few phrases." "Phrases?" the investor said, raising an eyebrow. "She didn't speak phrases. She translated with perfect grammar, perfect honorifics, perfect structure." The CEO swallowed hard. Employees around the table exchanged looks, some amused, some disappointed, others angry at the CEO's earlier behavior. "Anyway," Mr. Dalton said quickly, turning away, "let's continue with the—" But the investor wasn't done. He walked directly to Amina and knelt to her level, showing her a level of respect even the CEO didn't give. "Could you translate something else for me?" he asked kindly. Amina nodded shyly. "Yes, sir." He spoke a long sentence in Arabic, a complex business term, something involving negotiations and presentations. Most adults in the room couldn't understand a single word. Amina listened patiently, then translated into perfect English. He said the market projections look very promising, but he would like to understand how the company plans to expand into new regions. Gasps filled the room again. This wasn't simple Arabic. This was advanced vocabulary. This was business language. And she translated it effortlessly. The investor looked stunned. "Amazing," he said. "You understood every detail." Amina nodded. "Yes, sir." Mr. Dalton's jaw clenched. Every compliment toward Amina felt like someone hammering a nail into his pride. The investor stood up and addressed the room. "This girl," he said firmly, "is extraordinary. Her abilities deserve recognition." Everyone nodded in agreement. Then he turned to the CEO. "Mr. Dalton," he said calmly, "you should be proud to have such talent inside your company's walls." The words were polite, but the meaning was sharp. The CEO had tried to humiliate a child. Instead, he exposed his own ignorance. Trying to recover, Mr. Dalton laughed weakly. "Yes, well, children pick up things easily. It's not a big deal," an employee whispered under her breath. "She just saved him from looking like a fool." A small group of employees heard and nodded. Another whispered, "She speaks Arabic better than the CEO speaks English." Someone stifled a laugh. The CEO heard the whispers. Every word stabbed him deeper. Amina remained quiet, unaware she had started a silent revolution in the room. Ms. Daniels gently touched her daughter's shoulder. "You did so well," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. But the CEO was losing control. His humiliation was turning into frustration. And frustration in a man like him always led to bad decisions. He straightened his jacket sharply. "I think that's enough," he said coldly. "We don't need theatrics." A collective inhale filled the room. The investor stopped smiling. Amina looked confused. And Ms. Daniels felt a chill run down her spine. The CEO had been embarrassed in front of everyone, and now the real conflict was just beginning. Mr. Dalton's voice sliced through the room like a cold knife. "We don't need theatrics," he repeated sharply, trying to sound confident, but everyone could hear the frustration trembling under his words. Amina's small smile faded. She wasn't sure what she had done wrong. She only answered a question. She only helped. But now the CEO looked at her as if she had embarrassed him on purpose. The investor who praised her moments earlier frowned deeply. Theatrics, he echoed. Mr. Dalton, that girl just demonstrated exceptional skill. Mr. Dalton straightened his shoulders, trying to rebuild his pride. Yes, well, thank you, but this is a business meeting, not a language competition. Let's move on. But the room wasn't ready to move on. An employee whispered loudly enough for others to hear. He's angry because she did something he couldn't. Another added, he challenged her thinking she'd fail. Now he's embarrassed. Mr. Dalton's ears burned. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were truth being spoken openly, something he was never used to facing. The investor ignored the CEO and turned back to Amina with a warm smile. Young lady, would you join us at the table? We might need your help today. Ms. Daniels froze. A janitor's child being invited to the executive table? That had never happened before. Amina looked at her mother. Can I, Mom? Ms. Daniels swallowed, tears threatening to fall. Yes, sweetheart. Go ahead. When Amina walked toward the long wooden table, the entire room shifted. The powerful CEO stood silent as a little girl he tried to mock took a seat beside millionaires and investors. Mr. Dalton clenched his jaw. This is ridiculous, he muttered. The lead investor turned to him sharply. What's ridiculous is someone with her skill being underestimated because of who her mother is. The CEO's face went stiff. The investor slid a document toward Amina. Can you translate this Arabic section into English? Amina nodded and began reading quietly. Every word was accurate. Every sentence clear. Employees who had known her mother for years stared in awe. Some whispered, she's incredible, while others said, imagine being that smart at her age. When she finished, the investor clapped softly. Perfect. Truly perfect. The CEO's frustration boiled. He felt the respect in the room shifting away from him and toward a child. Away from status and toward talent. Away from arrogance and toward humility. He couldn't handle it. Mr. Dalton crossed his arms. Okay, enough, he snapped. We appreciate her performance. But this is a corporate environment. We need to get back to what really matters. The investor narrowed his eyes. Are you suggesting that respecting talent is not what matters? The CEO hesitated, but his pride pushed him forward. I'm suggesting we can't let a cleaning staff's child start acting like she belongs at this table. Everyone froze. A few gasps echoed through the room. Amina's face fell. Ms. Daniels felt her heart crack. The investor's eyes widened in disbelief. Did you just say that? Mr. Dalton realized he had crossed the line, but now it was too late to pull the words back. He lifted his chin. Yes, I said it. The investor slowly stood up. His voice dropped, quiet and deadly serious. Mr. Dalton, let me tell you something. Talent, intelligence, and worthiness do not depend on a job title or salary. That little girl deserves a seat at this table more than anyone who disrespects others. He placed a hand on Amina's shoulder protectively. Mr. Dalton's face flushed an ugly shade of red. You're overreacting. Another investor stood. On the contrary. You are the one who doesn't understand how to lead. Employees nodded quietly. A woman from HR added softly, Sir, this isn't the first time you've spoken like this. That sentence hit the room like thunder. People murmured. Some nodded in agreement. Others avoided looking at the CEO, afraid he'd lash out. Mr. Dalton turned to her sharply. What's that supposed to mean? But the investors had seen enough. The lead investor looked around the room and said, Let me make this clear. If this company wants to continue working with us, we expect respect toward employees, families, and talent, no matter their background. The CEO opened his mouth to argue, but the board members were already exchanging worried looks. Their expression said everything. They blamed him. They were embarrassed because of him. He was the problem. Meanwhile, Amina sat quietly, trying to shrink into her chair. She didn't want to cause trouble. She only wanted to help. Her mother finally walked toward her, placing a gentle arm around her. It's okay, baby, she whispered. You did nothing wrong. But the CEO's humiliation wasn't done growing. Because he didn't just offend a child. He offended the investors who controlled the company's future. And the real consequences were about to begin. The mood in the conference room had shifted from excitement to tension so thick it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. Amina sat beside her mother quietly, her hands folded in her lap, unaware that she had just become the center of a storm she did not create. Ms. Daniels held her close, her heart pounding, not from fear of her daughter's actions, but from fear of how the CEO might retaliate. Mr. Dalton tried to regain control of the room, straightening his tie aggressively. Let's get back to business, he ordered. but no one moved. The lead investor, Mr. Karim, stood with quiet authority. Business? He repeated. Business does not happen in a room where disrespect is tolerated. Mr. Dalton clenched his jaw. You're making this bigger than it is. No, another investor cut in. You made it bigger when you tried to embarrass a child to hide your own lack of knowledge. Employees exchanged glances. Some nodded subtly. Others looked relieved someone finally said it. Mr. Dalton's voice rose. This is MY Company. I am the CEO. I decide what happens here. His shout echoed across the conference room. But instead of fear, only disappointment filled the faces around him. You may be the CEO, Mr. Karim said calmly, but leadership is not a crown. It is a responsibility. Mr. Dalton scoffed, but his eyes darted nervously. He could feel the room slipping away from him, like sand falling through his fingers. Then Mr. Karim turned to Amina. Young lady, he said warmly, do you enjoy learning languages? Amina nodded shyly. Yes, sir. I like words, and stories, and speaking with different people. He smiled. Would you like to learn even more? Amina hesitated. I would love to. Ms. Daniels' eyes widened. No one had ever offered Amina anything like this before. Mr. Karim reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small card. I run a language mentorship program for gifted children. If your mother agrees, I would be honored to help you grow your talent. A gasp rippled across the room. A janitor's daughter being personally invited into an elite mentorship program? This was unheard of. Ms. Daniels placed a trembling hand over her heart. Sir, thank you. This means everything. But I don't know if I can afford. It is free, he interrupted gently. Your daughter's brilliance is enough payment. Tears filled Ms. Daniels' eyes. Her voice trembled. Thank you. Thank you so much. Amina smiled brightly, unaware she had just changed her own future. But the CEO was furious. Stop this nonsense. Mr. Dalton snapped. We are not here to sponsor random children. We are here for a corporate meeting. Mr. Karim turned slowly, eyes narrowing. If this is how you speak about the daughter of your own employee, then perhaps this company does not deserve our partnership. Gasps filled the room again. Those words carried weight, dangerous weight. Mr. Dalton's face drained of color. He understood the meaning instantly. Their multi-million-dollar deal was at risk. Wait, he stammered, don't jump to conclusions. It was a misunderstanding. It was a pattern, an HR manager said quietly. Everyone turned. What did you say? Mr. Dalton demanded. The HR manager swallowed nervously but continued. Sir, this isn't the first time you've spoken disrespectfully to staff. We have documented complaints. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Employees nodded. Some looked relieved the truth was finally surfacing. Mr. Dalton glared at her. You will regret saying that. No, she replied softly, I regret staying silent for so long. Mr. Karim stepped forward, placing both hands on the conference table. Mr. Dalton, leadership is not measured by money or status. It is measured by how you treat people. And today, you failed that test. The CEO's voice cracked. You can't just threaten the company. We aren't threatening the company, Mr. Karim said. We are questioning your leadership. The distinction hit like lightning. Board members sitting near the end of the table exchanged alarmed glances. Losing Mr. Karim's partnership would mean the company's future was in jeopardy. The CEO had officially become a liability. In desperation, Mr. Dalton pointed at Amina. This is her fault, he shouted. The room fell silent again. Everyone stared at him in disbelief. Amina's small face crumpled, not with guilt but with hurt. Ms. Daniels stood abruptly, anger burning in her eyes. Don't you dare blame my child, she said, voice shaking. She did nothing wrong. She was respectful. She helped you. She showed kindness. Her voice rose. And you humiliated her. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself. The employees murmured support. Mr. Karim nodded firmly. She's not the problem. You are. The CEO's empire was crumbling in real time. And the people in the room, including his investors, his employees, and a little girl he tried to mock, were no longer afraid to say it. The fall had begun. The room crackled with tension. Mr. Dalton stood red-faced, chest heaving, trying desperately to hold on to the one thing slipping from his hands: authority. But authority is fragile when respect is gone. And in that room, respect for him had evaporated like smoke. Amina held her mother tightly, her small fingers trembling. She didn't understand why the CEO hated her so much. All she did was speak a language she loved. Ms. Daniels stroked her daughter's back gently. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "You did nothing wrong." But the CEO wasn't finished. "I refuse to let this child ruin my meeting," Mr. Dalton shouted. "Your meeting was ruined the moment you belittled your own employee," Mr. Kareem said calmly. Mr. Dalton slammed his hand on the table. "I didn't belittle anyone. I was joking." The room filled with murmurs. One employee whispered loudly, nobody laughed. Another added, "Humor isn't humor when it hurts someone." The HR manager cleared her throat. "Sir, we have multiple reports of you making similar jokes toward lower-level staff, especially the cleaning team." Mr. Dalton's eyes widened in disbelief. "You took their side? Over me?" "We took the side of truth," she replied quietly. The CEO stared at her, stunned. He had always believed his position protected him. But today protection came from values, not titles. Mr. Kareem stepped forward. "Mr. Dalton, I came here today prepared to finalize a major partnership with your company. But seeing your behavior," he paused, letting the silence speak, "I am reconsidering everything." A sharp gasp ran through the room. Even Amina felt the heaviness of those words. Ms. Daniels tightened her grip on her daughter, guilt and fear mixing inside her. She never wanted to be the reason a company collapsed. She never wanted innocent employees to suffer because of her. But then she remembered she wasn't the cause. The CEO was. Mr. Dalton panicked. His voice softened suddenly, his tone shifting from anger to desperation. "Mr. Kareem, please. Don't let this misunderstanding destroy our deal. We've worked for months on this." Mr. Kareem looked him straight in the eyes. "And yet, you destroyed your own dignity in seconds." The words hit like a slap. Employees watched, some nodding, others stunned silent. They were witnessing something historic. The CEO of a major company being confronted for his arrogance in front of everyone. Mr. Dalton turned to Amina again, but this time his voice wasn't mocking. It was pleading. "Young lady, you are very gifted. But you don't know how business works. You don't understand." Amina looked up at him with innocent eyes. "I understand enough to know you shouldn't speak badly about people." The simplicity of her words shattered the last bit of his composure. He slowly sank into his chair as if his legs had finally given up. Ms. Daniels felt pity, not for the CEO but for the man he could have been. For the respect he could have earned. For the leader he failed to become. A board member spoke quietly, addressing Mr. Kareem. "Sir, please give us a chance to address this internally. Our company is more than one man." Mr. Kareem nodded. "I agree. And I respect your work. But I refuse to work with leadership that does not reflect our values." His gaze returned to the CEO. "There must be consequences." The HR manager exchanged looks with the board members. She opened her folder. "We have formal protocols for situations like this. There will be an investigation." Mr. Dalton looked horrified. "Investigation? You can't investigate me. I'm the CEO." "For now," a board member said quietly. A stunned silence fell over the room. Even Amina felt the shift, the sense that something serious had changed. Mr. Dalton looked around the table, searching for anyone who would defend him. But the faces around him were tired, disappointed, and done. He stood abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this. I'm the highest authority here." But a calm, steady voice stopped him. "No," said Mr. Kareem. "Respect is the highest authority. And you lost that." The CEO froze. The words echoed inside him like a truth he had never heard before. Amina stepped closer to her mother. "Mom, is he going to get in trouble?" Ms. Daniels whispered. "Sometimes people who hurt others finally learn they can't do it anymore." Amina nodded slowly. Mr. Dalton walked toward the door, shoulders stiff, trying to pretend he still held power. But every eye in the room watched him go, not with admiration but with disappointment. As the door closed behind him, the room exhaled. Amina had no idea she had just changed the fate of an entire company. And outside that room, the CEO faced the hardest moment of his life. For the first time ever, he had to face the consequences of his own actions. Mr. Dalton stormed down the hallway, his footsteps echoing sharply against the marble floor. The conference room door closed behind him, but the voices inside still echoed in his mind. Respect is the highest authority. He tried to shake the words off, but they clung to him like heavy chains. He had always believed he was untouchable. He had always believed people feared him. He had always believed he could say anything and walk away untouched. But today he felt the ground shifting under him. Meanwhile, inside the conference room, everyone sat in stunned silence. Amina clung to her mother's arm, feeling safe for the first time since the confrontation. Ms. Daniels kissed the top of her daughter's head. "You did something brave today," she whispered. Across the table, employees began whispering. "He crossed the line this time. He finally got called out. I hope the board does something." Even the children sensed the tension. A few of them looked at Amina with admiration, whispering how cool it was that she spoke Arabic like a professional. But the adults knew this was bigger than a language miracle. This was about dignity. This was about a leader who forgot how to lead. And about a child who reminded the room of what integrity really looked like. Mr. Karim, the lead investor, pulled out his phone and sent a message to his team. His face was serious but calm. He turned to the board members. "I need assurance," he said firmly, "that this company will address what happened immediately." The board chairman nodded. "We will. Mr. Dalton's behavior cannot be ignored." The HR manager added quietly, "We have multiple reports." Today was only the moment it came to light. Amina watched them talk, not fully understanding every detail, but she knew something important was happening. People were standing up for her. For her mother. For fairness. Suddenly the conference room door opened again. But it wasn't the CEO. It was the company's vice president, Ms. Torres, a calm, respected woman who rarely raised her voice but commanded attention whenever she walked into a room. She looked around, her eyes stopping on Ms. Daniels and Amina. "I heard what happened," she said. "Is everyone all right?" Ms. Daniels nodded gently. "We're okay." Amina offered a small smile. Ms. Torres then turned to the investors. "I want you to know this company values every employee no matter their job title. And what happened today does not reflect our values." Mr. Karim nodded. "I appreciate your words, Ms. Torres." Ms. Torres's tone shifted slightly. "I've spoken to the board. They are meeting immediately to discuss Mr. Dalton's future." Gasps filled the room. Amina blinked. "They're going to fire him?" Ms. Daniels whispered, "Sweetheart, they'll decide what's best for the company." Ms. Torres looked at Amina with a kind, warm smile. "Your gift is special. Thank you for showing us what true talent looks like. You reminded us that brilliance lives everywhere, even in places people overlook." Amina blushed, shy but proud. The meeting ended with handshakes, apologies, gratitude, and quiet promises of change. As families began leaving the conference hall, the whispers of admiration followed Amina and her mother. "She's amazing. She saved our dignity today." Imagine speaking Arabic at her age. Amina held her mother's hand proudly as they walked toward the elevator. But in another part of the building, the storm was growing. In an emergency board meeting, Mr. Dalton sat across from the company's highest executives. His face was pale now, like he finally understood the danger he was in. The board chairman began firmly. "Mr. Dalton, your behavior today jeopardized our partnership, embarrassed our company, and violated our ethical standards." Mr. Dalton clenched his fists. It was blown out of proportion. "No," Ms. Torres said, sitting beside him. "It was a reflection of your leadership." Another board member added, "The fact that a child showed more professionalism than you is alarming." Mr. Dalton's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. The room felt like a courtroom delivering sentencing. Finally, the chairman said, "We will review your position. Until the investigation concludes, you are suspended from your role as CEO." The words hit him like a punch. "As suspended?" he stuttered. "You can't be serious." "We are," Ms. Torres said firmly. "This company will not tolerate disrespect, especially toward its most hardworking employees." Mr. Dalton's eyes filled with anger and fear. For the first time in his career, he wasn't in control. Meanwhile, downstairs, Amina and Ms. Daniel stepped outside into the sunlight. The breeze was soft. The city was busy. Cars passed. People walked. Everything looked normal. But for them, nothing felt the same. Ms. Daniels knelt and hugged her daughter tightly. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she whispered. Amina hugged back, smiling shyly. "Mom, did I really do something big?" Ms. Daniels kissed her forehead. "You did something bigger than you know." Because in one morning, Amina didn't just translate Arabic. She translated truth, dignity, and strength into a room that desperately needed to hear it. And the consequences of that truth were just beginning to unfold. The sun was dipping lower in the sky when Ms. Daniels and Amina reached home. Their small apartment felt warmer than usual, filled with a strange mix of exhaustion and pride. Ms. Daniels made tea while Amina sat at the table, doodling tiny Arabic letters in her notebook. "Mom?" Amina asked quietly. "Is Mr. Dalton gone forever?" Ms. Daniels sighed. I don't know, sweetheart. They said he's suspended. That means he's not working until they finish deciding. Amina nodded thoughtfully, her small fingers tracing the shapes of Arabic words. I didn't want to make trouble. Ms. Daniels walked over, knelt beside her, and cupped her daughter's face gently. You didn't make trouble. You spoke the truth. You stood tall. That is something to be proud of. Amina's eyes softened. Do you think Grandma would be happy? Ms. Daniels smiled. Oh yes. She would be so proud. Back at the company headquarters, the board meeting dragging into the evening felt like the final chapter of a long, painful story. Executives sat around the room reviewing complaints, incident reports, and employee testimonies. It wasn't just about today. It was about the years of behavior that had gone unchallenged. On a big screen were summaries of internal complaints. CO spoke rudely to cleaning staff. CO made disrespectful comments toward cafeteria workers. CO belittled junior employees publicly. Line after line revealed a pattern that suddenly seemed impossible to ignore. Miss Torres tapped her pen thoughtfully. He treated people beneath him like they didn't matter. The board chairman nodded. And it nearly cost us a major international partnership. Another board member added, and it exposed our weak leadership culture. There were murmurs of agreement. Finally, the chairman said, we must think about what kind of company we want to be. Meanwhile, in his luxurious penthouse suite, Mr. Dalton slumped on the sofa, tie loose, hair disheveled. His wife poured herself a glass of wine and sat across from him. I can't believe this is happening, she muttered. All because of that kid. Mr. Dalton lifted his head sharply. Don't say that. She blinked, surprised. But it's not her fault, he said weakly. I did this. It was the first truthful thing he had said all day. His wife stared at him, confused by the sudden shift. But deep down, Mr. Dalton knew the truth. The little girl didn't embarrass him. He embarrassed himself. And now he was paying the price. At the same time, the investor Mr. Karim sat in his hotel suite, reflecting on the day. His assistant approached him. Sir, she said softly, the partnership has been paused. But the board asked if you'd consider working with them again under new leadership. Mr. Karim nodded slowly. We will consider it. But only if true change happens. His mind drifted back to Amina, the quiet girl with the shy smile and the brilliant mind. He thought of children around the world who never had their talent recognized simply because of where they came from. We need a scholarship fund, he said suddenly. For children like her. The assistant's eyes brightened. I can arrange it. Yes, he said with finality. Talent like that deserves every door opened. Across the city, Amina's phone buzzed. It was an email from the mentorship program Mr. Karim had invited her to. Congratulations, it said. Welcome to the Language Leaders Academy. Amina gasped and showed her mother. Ms. Daniels cried softly, hugging her daughter tightly. You did this, baby. You made this happen. Amina giggled. I just spoke Arabic. Her mother shook her head gently. No. You showed the world who you are. And miles away, the board's late-night emergency meeting finally ended. The chairman stood and made the announcement. Effective immediately. Mr. Dalton is removed from his position as CEO. The room exhaled. A new chapter for the company was beginning. Ms. Torres was appointed acting CEO until further notice. She took a deep breath, stepped up to the podium and said, Tomorrow morning we rebuild our values from the ground up. Meanwhile, Mr. Dalton sat alone in his penthouse, staring out the window at the city glittering below him. For years he believed he stood above everyone. Tonight he finally understood what humility felt like. And he would never forget the little girl who spoke Arabic, like a master, and taught him the biggest lesson of his life. The next morning, the world outside the Daniels apartment looked calm, but inside the company building, history was being made. Employees arrived early, whispering in hallways, checking emails, refreshing news feeds. Something big was happening. Everyone felt it in the air like electricity. At 9 a.m., all staff were called to an emergency meeting in the conference hall. Ms. Daniels hesitated. She wasn't usually part of meetings like this. But when she arrived to begin cleaning the offices, Ms. Torres, now acting CEO, approached her personally. Ms. Daniels, she said with warmth, please come to the meeting. Ms. Daniels blinked, confused. Me? But I'm not. You are an important part of this company, Ms. Torres said. And I want Amina with you too. Amina, who had been quietly reading her Arabic notebook in the corner, looked up with wide eyes. Me too. Yes, Ms. Torres smiled. Especially you. Inside the conference room, Employees filled every seat. The atmosphere was different today, not stressful, not tense, but hopeful. When Ms. Daniels walked in with Amina beside her, people smiled, waved, and whispered kind words. There she is. That's the little translator. She's incredible. Amina held her mother's hand tighter, still shy but slowly gaining confidence. When Miss Torres stepped up to the podium, the room fell completely silent. Thank you for coming, she began. Yesterday something happened that forced us to look at ourselves, our values, our leadership, and our culture. She paused, letting her words settle. For years people have been treated unfairly. Voices were ignored. Jobs were underestimated. Potential went unseen. And yesterday a child, Amina, reminded us what true respect looks like. A soft applause filled the room. Amina lowered her head, cheeks turning pink. Miss Torres continued, "This company will no longer be a place where arrogance is rewarded. It will no longer be a place where job titles determine worth. From today forward, this company will rebuild, with kindness, fairness, and respect at its core." Then she looked directly at Ms. Daniels. "And that begins with recognizing the people who hold this company together every day." Suddenly, she invited Ms. Daniels and Amina to stand beside her. The room erupted in applause. Ms. Daniels covered her heart, overwhelmed. She had never been honored in front of a room like this. Then Miss Torres turned to Amina with a big smile. "I have something for you." She held up a certificate. "Amina, on behalf of the company and our international partners, I am offering you a full scholarship from the Language Leaders Academy." A loud cheer filled the room. Amina's mouth opened in surprise. A scholarship?" "Yes," Miss Torres said warmly. "You have a gift, and you deserve every chance to grow it." Ms. Daniels burst into tears, unable to hold her emotions. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." But that wasn't all. Ms. Torres turned to the staff and announced, "And for Ms. Daniels, after years of dedication and hard work, we are officially promoting her to facility supervisor, with a salary increase and full benefits." Gasps, cheers, and applause shook the room. Ms. Daniels covered her face with her hands, crying tears she had held in for years. She wasn't just being seen, she was being valued. Amina hugged her mother fiercely. "Mom, you deserve this," she whispered. Meanwhile, far across the city, Mr. Dalton sat in a lawyer's office, staring blankly at the suspension papers and exit agreements. The world he built on ego had collapsed. His lawyer sighed. "You'll need to sign here." The board voted unanimously. Mr. Dalton signed slowly, silently. He wasn't angry anymore. Just empty. Because he now understood the truth. Power without respect is nothing. Leadership without humility is fragile. And a child he tried to mock had taught him everything he failed to learn in decades. Back at the office, employees lined up to congratulate Ms. Daniels and Amina. Some hugged them. Some offered gifts. Some simply said, "Thank you for opening our eyes." When the meeting ended, Mr. Karim, who had been watching quietly, approached Amina. "You changed a company," he said gently. "Never forget the power of kindness and knowledge." Amina nodded, her eyes bright. "I won't." As Ms. Daniels and Amina left the building hand in hand, the sunlight hit them warmly. They walked home with lighter steps, fuller hearts, and brighter futures. Amina looked up at her mother. "Mom, do you think I can become something big one day?" Ms. Daniels smiled through her tears. "Baby, you already did." And in that moment, on a quiet street with hope in the air, a janitor's daughter became proof that talent has no status, respect has no color, and greatness can rise from anywhere.